So we've been talking about the pillars of reversing diabetes, decreasing insulin, right? Yeah. Suppressing the appetite and reducing sugar. And so tonight we're going to go through and we're going to take each of those pillars, starting with the first, and we're going to talk about insulin. What does insulin do? And what are some strategies that we can use to decrease insulin? Hey, if you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new year, new you. I'm talking to adults with type 2 diabetes who want to put their diabetes in remission, who want to get off of medication, improve their metabolic health, who want to reverse their diabetes. If you're new, go ahead and put new in the comments as well, because I'd love to give you a hand clap and some music and let you know that I am happy that you are here in this space, and welcome you to the community and to the family. If you are also new and you have questions, go ahead and put those in the chat, in the comments. Put a Q in front of them, because I'd love to get to those as well. Just wanted to say hello to everybody who's out there. I'm glad that you are here, that you are hanging out with us here as we get into the show. I think I did see some folks out there even before we went live, and welcome to you all. If you are here, just say hello. Drop a message in, drop a chat, drop a hi, a thumbs up, a smile. Just let us know that you are out there. And once again, thank you for being here. I do see, let's see, who do I see out there? I see Steve. Hey, Steve, how are you? Steve said, I'm great, Teresa. And so he's just, hold on a second. What did I just do? Give me a second here, guys. Let's see. There we go. All right. Yes, the Steve is saying hello to Teresa. He says, I'm great, Teresa. How are you? Yeah, glad that you all are there. If you know someone who's not here, if you've invited someone who you think should be here, or even if you didn't invite them and you think they should be here, go ahead and send them a message and let them know that that we are here and that we are working to reverse diabetes, and that's what we do. That's what we do. And also, we're going to go ahead and show you here in a little while. You're going to take a look at my monitors, take a look at my meters, and see where I am. As you know, I do have off to the side. Let me see if I can pop that up. There we go. I've got my monitors off to the side that we'll take a look at here in just a minute. I also have my report. Let me go back to that one. I got my report down here that we're going to take a look at here in just a little bit as well. All right. Okay. And then I just saw Teresa dropped in. Teresa said, good, Steve. Happy work is done for the day. I love it. Love it. Love it. All right. So as a backdrop, so new year, new you. As you know, if you've been following us, if you've been in the space, you know what we're doing. So our goal is reversing diabetes, and we've been talking about new year, new you. You see, I got my T-shirt on right there. And one of the tools that we've been using is the tool of fasting. But we've learned several tools over the course of the time that we've been here. Everything from fasting, emotional intelligence, how to put a meal plan together, how to look at our medications and determine which medications we should consider stopping, which medications we should talk to our physicians about maybe getting on. So all of those are things that we are doing, that we're learning. But the three pillars of the reversing diabetes paradigm has to do with what you may have heard me say it, and you should have heard me say it over and over and over. Decrease insulin, suppress appetite, and reduce sugar. Decrease insulin, suppress appetite, and reduce sugar. Because those really are the pillars on which everything that we do is based. Now, there are a lot of things that you hear me say. You hear me say the triple E formula for success. We educate, we empower, we encourage. That's what the channel, that's what we do. That's how I implement the things that I do here in the channel, on the channel, in the space, in my office. When I'm talking to people about what I do, that's what I do. That's what I say. I educate, I empower, and I encourage people to take charge of their health and their life, avoid complications, and go to the next level and create the life they've always wanted. You've heard me say that before. As we talk about this particular space, though, when we talk about blood sugars and we talk about diabetes, how do we really go about implementing what we want to do in terms of diabetes? And that's what you hear me say all the time, the pillars for reversing diabetes. Because diabetes is not a blood sugar problem. Let me pause there. Right? So diabetes is not a blood sugar problem. Diabetes, blood sugar, high blood sugars are a consequence of the fact that someone has diabetes. Okay? And sometimes we actually look and come up with the incorrect, I don't want to say solution, we come up with the wrong problem. Let me give you an example. Say you walk into your house, or go to your house, and you walk in and the living room is flooded. There's water everywhere, and the chairs and the couches and the sofas, they're just floating through the house. And you look over and you see coming out of a wall, there's water pouring out of a wall, right? And you walk in and you say, hey, I guess it rained in here. Now, is rain a possibility? Yes, it is. Also, somebody bringing water in a bucket and throwing it in your living room is a possibility. But the most likely thing is the water that's pouring out of the wall. Okay? And the water that's on the floor is a consequence. It is a symptom. It is the result of the fact that that stuff right there is going on, that the water is coming out of the wall. And so when we talk about diabetes, when we think about blood sugar, the blood sugar that we see really is simply a consequence of the fact that there is a problem called diabetes. And of the things that we've talked about here in this space, and you've heard me say that, the biggest culprit is actually insulin. Okay? And we're going to come and take a look at that here in just a little while. But before we do that, let's go ahead and let's hop over and let's take a look at some blood sugars, right? Because I want to make sure that we go through that. By the way, if you are in the process, well, let me back up. Let me say it this way. If you did your labs last month, right, the month of June, go ahead and put yes in the comments. And if you are currently exercising, I shouldn't say if, and put in the chat what you are doing to exercise. So last month, yes, if you did your labs, comma, and then exercise. So I'm gonna start it out. I'm gonna say yes, comma, walking. Okay, so that's my thing. Yes, comma, walking. Okay, and while you do that, let's hop over and let's take a look at let's take a look at my monitor. And so this is my Freestyle Libre that you see on the screen, and that is what my blood sugar is currently. You'll see over the course of the last 12 hours that we've come from maybe at the very beginning of that's probably about 180, and then the last 12 hours 150 down to 97. If I look at the Dexcom, Dexcom is saying 132, and if I do that over the last 12 hours, kind of like the same thing that you've seen. Okay, and let's go ahead and hop over and take a look at my actual monitors. And these, as you know, I have a Keto Mojo and I have a Contour, and let's go ahead and look at those right now. Get a strip for the Contour. And the Keto Mojo gives me both a blood sugar and a ketone. So I'll start out with blood sugar. And let's take a look at that. Get that strip in there. And then grab my trusty container with all my stuff in it. I'm gonna grab 2 as I normally do, just in case I don't get a good stick. And this is a spring-loaded one. You guys have seen me use this before. Basically, break off the top, this purple part, and they come in different colors. Mine just happened to be purple and white. Pop that off, and when I press the spring, that little lever, then the spring on the inside pushes the lancet out, and it comes out. So I'm gonna hold this up. Let's go ahead and let's take a different view. There we go. And that way you can hear it. Okay, you should have heard that. And then let's see if I did a good enough job to get, oh, probably should have pressed that a little bit more, but that's okay. I think I may get just a drop of blood to be able to use here on the Keto Mojo. I'll probably have to, yeah, I'll probably have to stick that again. All right, so that's one of the things that happen. Let me see if I can milk. Okay, I can milk it a little bit, maybe. Okay, so that one gets started, and then just a little bit more. Come on, come on, come on. Hopefully it doesn't give me an error. So 87, right? And then I'll keep milking to get another drop of blood. So 87 for the Keto Mojo, 107 for the Contour. And then on the screen, you'll see the Dexcom is 129, and then the Libre is 96. As you know, with blood sugars, with monitors, right, they can be 20% different from each other. So let's see, 107, so 87, 107. So if I were looking at the 107, then that can be anywhere from 87 to 127, right? So here's 87, and then here is 129. So pretty close, right? So they span, actually the 20% that we talk about, they span those numbers right now. So let me go ahead before this dries up, and I'm going to get let's get the Keto Mojo so we can see what my ketones are going to be, and then get that started. So I've been eating since, I guess, is that Friday? When did I break my fast? I think I broke that on air with you guys, right? Okay, so that one, I think I'll have to do another poke for that one, y'all. Let's see. All right, I didn't do that in time. So let's see. All right, so there you are, another drop of blood. There we go. All right. So if you think you know what it's going to be, go ahead and pop that in the chat, and we'll hop over and work. Okay. Lightworks, welcome, is saying hello, evening everyone, evening all. Steve says my labs will be at the end of August, and he's walking. Teresa says yes, she did get her labs, and she's walking and a little biking. I love that. Okay, good. So Lightworks is just popping in. Good evening, and we're just asking everyone if they got their labs done last month. So put a yes and then a comma, and then what you are doing currently in terms of exercise. Okay. Now this month, the month of July, is to incorporate some kind of exercise. Okay, so if you're not doing it yet, you still got time for everybody if you're out there watching. Okay, so now having said that, let's hop over and let's take a look at what we're talking about. So we're talking about the pillars, right? So pillars, and tonight we're dealing with pillar number 1. And you'll see I've rearranged that a little bit. Normally it looks kind of like this. So pillar 1, 2, 3, decrease insulin, suppress appetite, and reduce sugar. But because we're talking about pillar 1, I brought that up front, right? So decrease the insulin, all right? That's what we're doing. And so let's hop over and let's go ahead and continue having that conversation. So insulin, and let me go ahead and give you a scenario. And you probably have heard me say this before. If not, here it is. So when I was growing up, my mom, there's 6 kids in my family, 3 boys, 3 girls. And my mom would go to work and she'd say, clean the house. and she would go away, and of course we would not clean the house all day. We're doing whatever, we're playing, cops and robbers and jumping up and down, and me and my cousin who used to be hanging out with us, we're doing all kinds of stuff. But anyway, we're not cleaning the house. And so my mom, she'd be at work, and my dad would be at work, and when it's time for them to come home, that was when, of course, we kind of started cleaning. And so they got home. My mom, she would come ring the bell, come upstairs because we lived on the third floor. And the floor with the house would be spotless, be clean, like we've been working all day. Right? Of course, as you know, we're not working. And Mom, if you're watching this, yeah. Well, she knows the story. And the floor would be clean. But if she went into a closet or into a drawer or under a bed, all the stuff that was everywhere was pushed off into that. And the management of diabetes is kind of like that. And insulin does the job it's supposed to do. One of the jobs that insulin is supposed to do is it's supposed to lower your blood sugar. And when you lower your blood sugar, insulin is the main thing that does that in our body. And you lower your blood sugar, you get a good A1C. But the question that I always ask, and you've heard me ask it, is when the insulin lowers the sugar, where does it put it? Just like at my house, we cleaned the house, we cleaned the floor, but where do we put the stuff? We put the stuff under the bed, in the drawers, in the closet, in not any particular order. We just shoved it in there. And so insulin does the same thing. Insulin's job is to lower sugar. And let me say this, sometimes insulin gets demonized. And it gets demonized because we've really misunderstood what insulin is supposed to do and how insulin is supposed to work. Okay? So we're going to try to clarify that a little bit. So insulin is a hormone. Yay, right? So I'm an endocrinologist. So whenever anybody says hormones, like my ears pick up, my ears perk, and my heart starts to flutter, okay? I know, I'm silly. But yeah, so when somebody says hormone, I'm starting to listen. You could be talking about all kinds of stuff, and may not be listening, but as soon as you say the word hormone, okay, my ears pick up because that's my thing, right? So that we deal with hormones. So insulin is a hormone that comes from the pancreas, and the pancreas is an organ that sits, kind of like if you take your finger. Let's see, can I do that? Yeah, there we go. Let's do this one. All right. So if you take your finger and you put it right here, what's called the xiphoid process. And the xiphoid process is where the ribs come together, right there. There's supposed to be a bone at the bottom of that breastbone. If you were to push your finger behind that and you were able to reach in, right behind where your hand is would be your pancreas. So right in that area. And this pancreas is a gland. And it produces several hormones, but one of the main hormones it produces is insulin. It also, by the way, happens to produce glucagon. So glucagon and insulin come from the same space, right? Or from the same organ, same gland. They come from different cells, right? A whole nother conversation. So insulin is a hormone that comes from the pancreas. Its job is to reduce blood sugar levels. And it does that by facilitating the uptake of the sugar into the cells. And this is the idea that we have come to understand when we talk about the whole lock and key model, the lock and key model. So insulin is the key, and insulin opens the door to the cell, and when it does that, all of the sugar goes into the cell. Okay? That's the whole idea behind the lock and key model. So that's the idea. So when you hear people say lock and key, that's what they're talking about. And it has worked well for us because in the process of educating people and talking to them about blood sugars and insulin, it makes sense. And so that function of insulin works well, right? So that's what it's supposed to do. And we'll talk here in a minute about some other things. Okay, so types of insulin. So when people think of insulin, most of the time they think of insulin that someone takes as a medication, and that is really the most common insulin that people know about, that people see. But the most common insulin is not insulin that the body that you take from outside. That's called exogenous insulin, right? Coming from outside. The most common type of insulin is endogenous insulin. So there are billions of people on the planet who don't take insulin as a medication, but their body produces insulin, and that is called endogenous. So when I talk about decreasing insulin, I'm talking about decreasing insulin that you take from outside, that's exogenous as a medication, or I'm talking about insulin that your body makes, endogenous. And when we talk about endogenous insulin, there are a couple of things that we need to kind of pay attention to. Okay? If you remember a show I did probably in January, we talked about medications to consider getting off and medications you consider getting on. And so there are certain medications that we take, that we prescribe, and even though you're not taking an insulin shot from outside, the medication, the pill, or the other shot, the non-insulin injectable, when you take it, it makes your pancreas, those cells in the pancreas, it forces them to produce insulin. So when I talk about decreasing insulin, I'm talking about all types of insulin, regardless of where they came from. Whether you took a shot or whether you took a pill and that pill caused your pancreas to produce insulin, or you are insulin resistant, meaning you're not diabetic, but your body's producing too much insulin anyway. So I'm talking about all of those insulins. We want to decrease them. Because if we don't decrease them, then we run into some other issues. Okay, so just like the insulin takes the sugar and it puts it in the cells, and well, it takes it out of the blood, which is great, but it got to put it somewhere. And so the lower the amount of insulin we have in our body, the less likely those things are happening in the body. Okay, now as a backdrop of why decrease insulin, let's talk about this. So if my body is making insulin, right, and most type 2s are producing insulin, maybe not a lot, but they're producing some, unless they're unless they're way into their disease process, and that's another conversation to have. But for the majority of people who are still producing insulin, that means their body is well able, right, to produce the hormone that lowers the blood sugar. And if that's the case, then why are the blood sugars not lower? Why is someone, quote unquote, diabetic if their body is still producing insulin? And they are considered diabetic because the insulin that they have is not able to keep their blood sugar in the normal range. I want you to follow me. So their body is still producing insulin, but for some reason, the blood sugars are still elevated. Okay, we're not going to talk about why it's not producing insulin or not functioning well yet, right? So that's the result. And so because people see high blood sugar, which is actually one of the definitions of how we diagnose diabetes, we have come to equate high blood sugar with diabetes. But the high blood sugar is simply a symptom of the diabetes. Okay? All right. So back to my scenario. So if my body's producing insulin, but the blood sugars are high, that means the insulin that I have on board is somehow not able to keep the blood sugar from rising. I want you to think about a scenario, and I tell people this in the office all the time. I want you to imagine having a grand piano at your house, okay, in your apartment, wherever you are. and you want to move the grand piano from one room to another. And you walk up to the grand piano and you try to pick it up. Well, for most of us, maybe there's somebody out there, I don't know, but for most of us, we would not be able to pick up the piano. And so my question then comes, if you're not able to pick up the piano, is there something wrong with you? And the answer I'm going to answer quickly is that no, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that what you are being asked to do is too much for your capability. Let me say that again. There's nothing wrong with you. But the piano is just too heavy for you to lift. And just like on the piano, with the piano example, in the body, the reason that the insulin is not working is because what it's being asked to do is too heavy a load. I want you to pause that. I want you to get that. I want you to get that. All right, so I'm asking my body to do more than it can currently do. So if somehow I were able to decrease what I'm asking it to do. For example, to go back to the piano example, if somehow magically I was able to, hit a magic wand or throw some pixie dust or something on the piano and the piano got lighter, then all of a sudden you would be able to handle it. You would be able to lift it. Not because you have changed, but because the piano has changed. Got it? Got it? Got it? Okay. So when we talk about blood sugar, when we talk about diabetes, our goal is to somehow get the amount of insulin that we have on board to be able to manage the sugar that we have on board. That's ultimately the goal, right? And that's why if we go back to how we currently treat diabetes, we manage diabetes. For instance, the blood sugar is high, so we give you more insulin. The blood sugar is high, we give you more medication. Right? Because the goal is to try to get the blood sugar, wherever it is, to match the amount of insulin that your body has. And so for most medications, other than, the SGLT2s, right? And the SGLT2s, all they do is they take sugar and they put it in the urine. Basically, they're getting rid of sugar. So what they're doing is they're decreasing the amount of sugar, so the amount of insulin that your body has on board is working. Look at that. See that? Or when we give you insulin, the blood sugar is up here, so we're giving you enough insulin to raise it up so that the sugar matches the insulin. Or your blood sugar is up here, so I give you a pill, and the pill forces your pancreas to make more insulin so that the amount of insulin that you have on board matches the sugar. Or there's a medication called acarbose. And what acarbose does when you take it, it decreases your body's ability to absorb sugar. So that if I'm not absorbing the sugar, the amount of sugar in my body goes down, and the amount of insulin I now have on board is appropriate for the sugar. I want you to get this, right? So that's how we currently treat diabetes. We try to match the sugar with whatever insulin is in your body. All right, so let's go now and let's talk about insulin itself. All right, so that's kind of the idea. So insulin itself. So we said insulin is from the pancreas. Insulin's job is to lower sugar by getting it into the cell, right? And that's the answer to the question. Where does insulin put the sugar when it takes it out of your blood? It puts it into the cell. That's where we get weight gain. That's where we get fatty liver. That's where we get myositis and joint aches and joint pains and all the things that go along with that, right? All right. So what are some strategies then to decrease insulin? The strategy to decrease insulin. And the reason we want to decrease insulin again, because although insulin is good at what it does, too much insulin is not good. You've heard me tell the story about the car, right? So I used to live up in Ohio, and I lived in New York, and I spent some time in Chicago. And I come out in the morning, and my car right? If you live in those areas, you know, you turn that key and you go, right, and the car wouldn't start. And you hit the gas a couple of times, and all of a sudden the car starts up. Well, if you hit the gas one too many times, you would flood the carburetor. So even though gas is good, too much gas is not good. So put too much gas in the carburetor and you can't do anything. So there's gas in the car, the engine is working, the battery is good, but the car won't function because you have too much gas in the carburetor. The same thing for the body. Sugar is good, glucose is good, the body's functioning, everything else in your body's working, but because there's too much sugar, it does not function well. I want you to keep that analogy in your head. So we're not decreasing insulin because insulin itself is bad, but too much insulin, just like too much sugar, is also bad. And so we want to decrease it so we don't have all of those complications that we see around the body. All right, so strategies to decrease insulin. So we're going to go through these, right? So improve insulin sensitivity, decrease the glucose load. We're going to reduce inflammation, improve sleep quality, manage your stress, and stay well hydrated. Right? So that's where we're heading. That's where we're heading. All right. So let's do this. All right. So improve insulin sensitivity. What does that mean? So insulin sensitivity means that what we want to do is we want to make the amount of insulin that the body currently has. We're not trying to make more, but just the amount that the body currently has in it, we want it to work better. So if I have 10, I want 10 to look like 20. If I have 20, I want 20 to look like 40. If I have 40, I want 40 to look, or whatever the number. Okay? So improve my insulin sensitivity. So what are some ways to improve insulin sensitivity? Number one, exercise regularly. Now, I'm going to pause here because when people hear exercise, you're thinking like exercise like the heart doctor wants you to exercise. You know, let's say your heart rate should be 220 minus your age, and 80% of that is what you're supposed to achieve. That's not what I'm talking about. Now, that's great if you want to do that. And if you get to that point, then you burn more sugar. And I'm not even talking about exercising so that you are burning calories. When you exercise, the body uses sugar. Sugar gets into the muscles without the use of insulin. What? Let me say that again. We've just said that in order for sugar to get into a cell, then you need insulin. Right? Well, in an exercising muscle, the exercising muscle says, I don't need insulin. I just need sugar. And so it soaks up sugar without the use of insulin. So what does that then mean? So if the muscle is soaking up sugar without the use of insulin, that means that the insulin that I have on board can go do something else. So that means you don't have to take more insulin from outside, and the body doesn't have to make any more insulin. So the moment I start exercising, my body switches from using, or my muscles switch from using insulin to absorb sugar, and it just sucks it up. And all of a sudden, the amount of insulin that I have on board looks like more. So where I used to have to go, I have 10, and I've got to go get another 5 to bring the blood sugar down. Now I have 10. The blood sugar is lowered already because my body's sucking it up. And so the 10 that I have left can go do something else. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, I love it. I love it. So exercising muscles will burn sugar without the use of insulin. Number 2, maintain a healthy weight. Maintain a healthy weight. Now, this goes back to our idea, and let me put that back up just so you guys maybe come up come off of it too quickly. This goes back to the idea that we've been talking about all the time about the lock and key model. The lock and key model traditionally says that someone is, say, 100 pounds and the body's making 5 units of insulin. And they put on 20 pounds and the blood sugars are wanting to go up, but the body now has to make 11 units of insulin because they put on some weight. And then they put on another 20 pounds. So now they went from 100 to 120 to 140. And the blood sugars start to try to rise. And the body now makes 12 units of insulin to keep the blood sugar down. Notice what's happening. That every time the blood sugar starts to rise because someone puts on weight, the body makes a little bit more insulin to maintain the blood sugar. And the traditional thought is that over time, your body keeps having to make more and more and more insulin. And then at some point, you may need 25 units, but the body can only make 24. And at that point, blood sugars begin to rise. Okay, so that's the idea. Now, there's been some change in the thought, but the idea still is a relatively valid one. So maintaining reasonable weight allows the insulin that your body has to work better, okay? And I want you to listen to another model. So rather than the lock and key model, let's think about something else, what's called the suitcase model. When I travel, there are 3 of us who usually leave the house, me, my wife, my son, and I pack all my stuff in my suitcase, okay? And invariably, somebody will say, one of the other travelers, or if somebody's going with us, they'll say, hey, can you put this thing in your suitcase? So I'll open up my suitcase, I'll put it in, and I'll close it back. Well, if they keep doing that, at some point, I open up my suitcase and I put whatever they want in it. And then I basically have to sit on the suitcase and they have to press it down and we zip it up really quickly, right? I don't know if you've ever done that when you travel. And so the suitcase is packed. Now, here's the issue. Anything else that I want to put in that suitcase is going to be hard to put it in. Because the suitcase is full. It is packed. And so the idea there, when it comes back to diabetes and insulin resistance and so forth, is that maybe the sugar is not getting into the cell, not because the insulin can't open the door. Maybe insulin can open the door, but the cell is already so packed that you can't get anything else in it. And the question then becomes, well, what's already in the cell? And you can hear me going there, right? Do you see where I'm heading? And so we think the thing that's in the cell, I shouldn't say we think, what's in the cell is that cell is being packed up with cholesterol, with fat. And so the cell is already packed. And so I can't get anything else in it. So the sugar has to stay outside the cell. Not because the insulin can't open it, but because the fat is already packed up in the cell. And so decreasing our weight decreases the fat that's in the cell. And when we do that, all of a sudden, the blood sugars can get better because now I can get more stuff in the cell. You guys follow that? And that's the suitcase model. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so not that the insulin can't get into open the cell, but that something's already in the cell and it's already packed. Boom. Okay. All right. So maintain a healthy weight. The next one, eat a balanced diet. A balanced diet. And right here, when I talk about a balanced diet, I'm not talking about quantity of the food. I'm talking about the quality of the food. Right? We're going to talk about quantity here in a minute. So when I say eat a balanced diet, this is focusing on good, healthy food. Whole foods, as we've talked about before. Foods that have fiber. Foods that are non-starchy, right? And we'll deal with that again. So we're talking about the quality of the food. This is where we talk about eating food that has that's nutrient rich rather than calorie dense, or nutrient dense rather than calorie dense. Because when we do that, we don't get the spikes in blood sugar that we get with foods that are not, the food is not balanced, right? And we'll talk about some of the processing here in just a minute. Well, let's talk about that now. Okay? And then decreased glucose. When we talk about decreased glucose, now we're talking about decreasing the load, the amount, right? So low carb diet. That's why all of the diets that we've talked about work. And when I say diet, I'm talking about diet specifically for blood sugar, diet for diabetes. Now, there are other diets people use for weight management. We're not talking about those right now, although some of those can also be used here. I'm talking about diets where we are cutting back on carbs. So low carb diet, the ketogenic diet, right? The Mediterranean diet. All of those that are good for blood sugar. Right? So that's talking about the carb. Right here, we're talking about decreasing glucose. The next one is portion control. Man, I went to, well, one of my favorite stores, not stores, favorite restaurants to go to was a place that served noodles. Yes. And when they gave you a serving, it looked like a one serving, but it was probably 2 or 3 servings that was in there. And because I saw it, it was in a bowl, I thought, well, I need to eat the whole thing. But portion control. If you remember back in April, we talked about creating a meal, and one of the criteria on the meal was it had to be an appropriate portion size. Because we eat too much in terms of, sometimes it's not even the quality of the food that's causing us an issue. It is the quantity of the food. I think last week when I was checking in, I said, when I first started fasting, I would go and I would save all of the food that I would have eaten that week, right? So when I first started, I would get all the food because I wanted to see, well, how much was I eating? And so every time they would order at the office, I would order something. I'd go down to the cafeteria and get what I would normally get, and I'd put it in the refrigerator. And at the end of the week, when I opened up the refrigerator, I said to myself, oh my goodness. Because even though I had eaten, I broke the fast and all that stuff with you guys here on the show, and I had eaten and I'm full, I'm thinking to myself, man, I would have eaten what I ate already and all the stuff that's in the refrigerator. So portions, so important. And then incorporate fasting. That was coming in somewhere, right? Because when we are fasting, we are dropping, we are decreasing, we are minimizing the glucose that's in our body, glucose load. Remember the goal for the treatment, right? And I'm going to use the word treatment. I know we're talking about reversing, but when we're talking about blood sugar, right? The goal when we treat diabetes is to get the amount of sugar that's in your body to be equal to the amount of insulin that your body has on board. And once that happens, then we get good numbers. Bring this down so you can see my face. Okay? All right. So we're decreasing glucose load. Next, we want to reduce your inflammation. Reduce your inflammation. Well, inflammation in the body makes you insulin resistant. Because when there's inflammation, right, cortisol levels go up, and then the body becomes resistant because now you have all these, your cells are a little swollen, they're irritated. We've got all these macrophages and white cells that are floating around, and they're just gobbling up foreign stuff, foreign things from the body. But whenever there's inflammation, then someone becomes insulin resistant or insulin resistance goes up. This, let me come to this screen. So this right here, we used to think, right? We used to think that the abdominal obesity was simply, it was just fat cells. We now know that those fat cells release things called cytokines. And those cytokines are pro-inflammatory, meaning that they cause inflammation. And they cause insulin resistance. So improving your inflammation, right? Treating whatever it is, right? It's rheumatoid arthritis. It's, you have allergies. You've got psoriasis. You've got some autoimmune disease, right? So whatever it is, treating that helps diabetes. So anti-inflammatory diets. So avoiding things like let me say it a little differently. I want you to begin thinking about the difference between an allergy and an intolerance. An allergy and an intolerance. So an allergy says that I take something in that my body is truly allergic to, and I have an anaphylactic reaction. So my mouth swells, my eyes get puffy, I start wheezing because I can't breathe, right? That whole thing that, when people have allergies, you get a bee sting, you eat peanuts, whatever it is. That's an allergy. An intolerance happens, but it's a much slower thing. So the allergy, as soon as sometimes that person gets in contact with whatever it is, you can tell. But an intolerance is a little different. Someone who has an intolerance to a particular food or a particular substance, they get exposed to it today in August or in September or in December or in January. Okay? So it could be like weeks ago, sometimes months ago. And all of a sudden they start to feel, well, I'm just a little bit more tired. And this is weeks later. I feel a little nauseated. I've got a little rash. And they begin thinking, and they think, well, I haven't been exposed to anything in the last 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 10 days, 12 days, 2 weeks. I have not been exposed to anything. I haven't done anything differently. But it's not the last 2-3 weeks. It's been something that you got exposed to 4 months ago. That's now kind of showing up. So when we talk about anti-inflammatory foods, the reason I said that is that there are these things, nightshade plants can be pro-inflammatory. And these are things like tomatoes, squash, eggplant, bell peppers. So some people have an intolerance, right? So those things are pro-inflammatory in their bodies. Avoid inflammatory foods, right? So anti-inflammatory diet, avoid pro-inflammatory foods, and consider supplements. Things like omega-3, turmeric, right? All those are anti-inflammatory. And so adding them, vitamin D is another one. Adding them to your regimen may help in the process. To reduce, and remember what we're talking about. We're talking about reducing insulin or decreasing insulin. And then improve sleep quality. Oh, ho, ho, ho. This one is a big one. Improve sleep quality. What does that mean? When you don't sleep well, your blood sugars go up because your body is in a state of stress. When it's in a state of stress, it produces 2 main hormones, 3, but two big ones we're going to talk about: cortisol and epinephrine. Cortisol's job is to go and find sugar, and epinephrine's job is to get your body ready to use it. So the yin and yang, right? Go find me some energy, sugar, raise the blood sugar, and now epinephrine, get my body ready to use it. So when you don't sleep well, your body naturally has higher sugars. It can become more insulin resistant. So what has to happen? You have to take more insulin from outside, or your body has to produce more insulin. Right? And when what we're talking about decreasing insulin as the first pillar. So if I'm not sleeping well, by virtue of that, I'm forcing my body to have to produce more insulin or for me to have to take more insulin. And that goes against the pillar because the pillar is decreasing the insulin. So how do we get better sleep? We want to establish a sleep routine. I'm putting my hand up as somebody who has to work on that, by the way, because you all see me sometimes. I'm here all kinds of hours, right? Got to work on that. So establish routine. Create a sleep-friendly environment. Now, I do have a sleep-friendly environment because when I go to sleep, I'm gone. I'm out. I've got one of these sleep machines that my wife has there. It plays music. Sometimes it'll play sounds. And then I'll just tell Google, right, to play thunderstorm sounds because I love it. And once I hear that, gone. Right? The room is dark. Right? So we don't have lights everywhere. Right? So I don't have the TV on. We actually don't have a TV in the bedroom. Right? Establish a pattern, get to bed at the same time, create a sleep-friendly environment. If you are in bed and you have not fallen asleep within 20 minutes, don't stay in bed. Get out of bed, do something else, and when you feel sleepy, get back in bed. Right? Get that routine. And then address sleep disorders. Right? Address sleep disorders. So you may need to see a physician to deal with that. And then manage your stress. Manage your stress. Once again, stress produces cortisol and epinephrine, and their job is to do what? Their job is to go and find sugar and get your body ready to use it. So practice mindfulness and meditation. Mindfulness, knowing where I am. Now, and I should have done this weekend. I didn't. Next time I'm going to do it. So this weekend was a struggle for me. We have a trip that's coming up that I was preparing for. We had a readiness training this weekend with all the people who are going on the trip. There's some things I'm responsible for that I wasn't quite sure where everything was. And so all of that. Okay. And so I started thinking about that on probably Friday night, Saturday night, because we were doing it on Sunday. We were out there all day, well, most of the day Sunday. We started at 9 o'clock, didn't finish until maybe 3, 4 o'clock. And so in that space, the stress level is up. And when we're stressed, what do? We eat. Okay? I'm going to have to do that video. All right, so practice mindfulness. Know where you are. Engage in relaxation activities. Learn how to relax. I've told you where I go in my mind. St. Simon's Island off the coast of Georgia, between Georgia and Florida. Right? That's the space. I'm there. I'm imagining preparing for the trip, packing for the trip, driving, getting across the little bridge that goes onto the island. And we get there, and I remember we went to this little cottage and put our stuff up, and the people they turned the bed down, had the little mints, and my wife and I went walking down the little road, right, and watching the shops. And I'm imagining it, y'all. So when I'm stressed, one of the places I go, St. Simon's Island. The other thing I do, sometimes I come and I sit, and right outside my window, there is a tree. And I'll sit and I'll count the leaves. Because while my brain is counting, it can't think of anything else. I'll get into the shower. I think I've told you about the book, The Power of Now. Right? Get into the shower. And as I'm showering, I'm imagining each of the water drops hitting my body. And I'm trying to count them. Because while my brain is engaged, it can't think about the stuff that's stressing me. You may need to get professional help. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Develop friendships. Get out of your comfort zone. Go meet somebody. Go to the Y. Go to the community center. Go to the library. Meet some friends. Make some friends. When you go to the grocery store, don't just stay in your little bubble. Right? Talk to people around you. I do that. Right? Engage in life. Cultivate some hobbies. Cultivate some hobbies, and you'll be surprised. Okay? And then stay well hydrated. You can lower your blood sugars by 30% if you remain hydrated. So when you lower your blood sugar, what you're doing, you're bringing the blood sugar down to the point where the amount of insulin your body makes is appropriate for where the sugar is. Drink plenty of water. Start your day with water. Get up in the morning. Eat hydrating foods, right? So those are your fruits and vegetables. Limit sugary drinks. Yep. And then limit dehydrating beverages, like beverages that have caffeine. Even though you're getting beverage in, you're getting hydration in, it's really not hydrating because a lot of that goes down the toilet, right? Because you pee it out. Okay. Remember, we're talking about lowering insulin. What is a pillar, right? And we're dealing with the very first pillar: decrease the amount of insulin that's in your body. All right, let's hop over and let's see. We've got some comments that I've seen been coming through. Let's see. So we've talked about whether you got your labs done and whether you are what you're doing for exercise. So Lightwork says no labs until August. I've been walking 20 to 30 minutes every day during lunch and evening, depending on weather. Outside of that, along with my wife and kids, we have been doing high intensity. Okay, I love it. There you go. You get some music for that. All right. And then it says Apple Fitness app tracking using Apple Watch. I love it. I have an Apple Watch that I don't use. It's somewhere. So, but anything that you do, anything you want to change, you got to track. So the light works. I love that. Thank you. And Steve is saying great work. Yes, definitely. Lightwork said also I have been fasting since July 11th, average of 22 hours, and the longest being 45 hours. I'm so proud of myself. Thank you for your... Oh, man, come on. There we go. All right, that's what we do. I love to hear that. Let's see. Troll Runnikin says, don't have diabetes. Now, hey, let me, that's a good point for us to hop over here and say this. So remember, the things that we're talking about, not just for diabetes. Diabetes is the prototypic metabolic disease. What does that mean? It means it is a good example. It is an example that has all the stuff that we talk about when it comes to metabolism. So diabetes is the prototypic metabolic disease, but the things that we talk about in terms of improving your health, in terms of decreasing insulin, works for all of them, because the issues that you're seeing, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, polycystic ovarian syndrome, increased coronary artery disease, and so on and so forth, and prediabetes and obesity, all of that has as its culprit elevated insulin levels. Yep. And the pillars, right? The three pillars: decrease insulin, suppress appetite, and reduce sugar. All of that works for all of those. So just because you're not diabetic doesn't mean that this doesn't work for you. In fact, we want you to get involved. Okay. And Steve said, I started fasting about March 1st. We tried to eat one healthy meal a day. I started at 227 pounds. I'm now 181. Fasting has worked wonders for me. Steve, my man. Love it. Love that. Love that benefit. Jennifer said, howdy all. Steve is saying, hey, Jennifer. Lightwork says, wow, Steve, how do you break your fast? I'm trying to learn that. I know to avoid the carbs, but I need a list. Since I know I'm going to fast the next day, I don't want to eat too little. So good question. And so Lightworks, if you go back to our on the channel, there is a playlist called How to Fast Successfully. And then there's another one that says fasting for the beginner, I believe. So if you start and look at the very first videos in each of those, then you'll see that. And then if you catch any of the videos that we do on a Friday, so you go through that list, anyone that we've done on Friday, we do a review of fasting. And at the end, we talk about how to break the fast. Okay. Teresa's saying, hi, Jennifer. The Lightwork says, hi, Jennifer. And then Steve said, tonight I had a beef tips with veggie stir fry. I use green veggies and avocado. Yeah, love it, love it. I love it. Yay. That's what I'm talking about, y'all. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, anybody here, this is a great spot for us to do the thought of the day. So let's hop over and let's do that right now. All right, and our thought of the day is this, that small steps in the right direction can turn out to be the biggest steps of your life. Small steps in the right direction can turn out to be the biggest steps in your life. Now, one of the things that I am teaching my son is the value of money. And I'm using that, we'll come back to diabetes. Because there are so many people, we got the cards now, right? So when I was a kid growing up, and you may know this, we had the money and you had to count it out and you had a sense of how much that nickel was worth. Is nickel worth anything nowadays? So the value of money and the ability to take money and to put it away and to have that money grow, savings. It is perhaps one of the most under taught and underrated things in our society, because we're also used to the microwave mentality that I put it in and 5 minutes later or 2 seconds later or 3 seconds later, it comes back out and it's perfect. And so the idea of taking something and putting it away and waiting is almost lost. When I was a kid, we didn't have a lot of money. And so I remember living in New York, I decided that I wanted to become a ham radio operator. And my grandfather says, that's great, but why don't we start with a CB, a Citizen Band Radio? And so we went to the store and I found the one I wanted. And I said, yes, that's the one I want. And he went up to the counter and he talked to the manager and he came back and he gave me a piece of paper. And I was expecting him to come out with the CB radio, but he handed me a piece of paper and he said, hey, if you keep putting some money on this in 30 days, I think it was 30 or 45 days, it'll be yours. It was called a layaway. It's called a layaway. And many times the things that we do don't happen in microwave time, but they happen in layaway time. But everything that we do when it comes to our health, any steps that we take, just even the smallest step, a new thought, a new dish, a new ability to taste something different, the ability to connect, a new procedure, a new challenge, a new tool that I've learned. Anything that we learn that takes us in the right direction is setting us up for success in the future. And notice what I said, in the right direction. Important point, because there are often times when we are doing a lot. It's kind of like if you ever watch rowing, right? I don't row, but I've watched them. I love to see those guys, and they're pull, and they're all pulling in the same direction. Have you ever seen one of those boats where like the guys on one side are not pulling at the same time with the guys on the other side? What happens? And you look at them and they're doing a lot of work. I mean, they're moving, they're expending energy, but they are not heading in the right space. And so small steps that you take in the right direction will set you up and be the biggest steps of your life. So I encourage you, even now, begin taking small steps. It doesn't matter what's happened in the past. It doesn't even matter if there are complications that you're currently seeing in your health. But small steps that you begin taking today to correct that and go in the right direction will set you up for big things in your future. And that is our thought for today. All right, all right. So I'm glad that you guys are here, and I love the communication you guys are. I see that in the chat. Um, so Lightwork said that he's gonna check the playlist. Teresa says awesome at Lightworks, and Steve, we use to collect pop bottles and refuse to spit. That's right. Right back in the day. Yes, Jennifer, we did too. Awesome. All right. So, one thing before I move into our kind of a wind down, we will be having our next community meetup. Our next community meetup will be, and let me give you the date because I'm getting there. That's going to be next week. Where is it? Actually, no, not next week, y'all. We're in the week. Next community meetup is going to be Thursday, the 25th. That's this week, this Thursday, coming up at 7 o'clock. And we will be using the same code that we've used in the past. So make sure that you go ahead and get in for that. If you've not done so yet, go ahead and sign up. And it's a great time to come together. If you got specific questions, we kind of go around the room, we meet each other. We're going to pick some folks and kind of do some coaching in that space. When I say coaching, talking about your specific situations. So if there are specific questions you have about fasting, about medications, about issues that you're seeing, about labs that you may have, this is a great place to come and have those questions answered and to have some community, right? Because in this space, community is so important, and that's a great segue for our Triple E formula for success, because that's what we do here on the channel. That we educate, we empower, and we encourage. And I want to let you know that at your fingertips is unlimited potential. Unlimited potential to be better, unlimited potential to make improvement, unlimited potential to create a destiny for yourself. And we do that here with the Triple E formula for success. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. We educate with the shows, with the blogs, with the podcasts. All of that is with the idea of helping you to look at things a little differently, to have an open mind, to have a change in your mindset, to create a frame shift, if you will. If you want to change things, you've got to understand, and you've got to have data and information. So we educate, we empower with all the tools that we learn here on the channel, right? All of the emotional intelligence, the heat model, how to create a meal, how to fast. All of those are tools that we are helping you to learn so you can begin implementing the things that we're getting through the education. And then we encourage with the community, as you see, the community that you are a part of, the community that supports, encourages, and gives advice. That's what we do here, the Triple E formula for success. Remember, as you're going through your fast, as you're going through making decisions for your health, for your wellness, to be in a better space to reverse your diabetes, there are going to be some triggers. You can't avoid them. They are triggers, but understanding the triggers allows you the power to be able to make a change. We eat, for example, because of habits, emotions, access, and taste. We eat because of the routines that we've come up with. The routines in our lives, the social cues, when people go to lunch, when we sit down to the movies, when we are playing cards, we go bowling, we hang out with our friends. There are certain foods and certain things that we do as part of that, not because we're hungry, but because it has become a habit. We eat because of emotions. We eat because of anxiety. We eat because of tiredness and frustration and depression and all of those. For me, this weekend, I was eating because of the stress that was associated with all the things that was going on and all the things that are coming up that I did not do a good job of managing. Remember, if you allow those emotions to get too high, they will plow through a decision that you've made that you're not going to eat something. And in my case, it was peach ice cream and vanilla ice cream and butter pecan ice cream and Rocky Road ice cream. Yeah, there it is. I'm just being honest. Okay? So we eat because of habits, emotions. We eat because of access, because things are just around, right? Just around. And we eat because of taste. We eat because of taste. And the taste, remember, we're never chasing food. We're always chasing the thing that the food does. We're chasing the emotions, the memory, the space that the food will put us in. That's the heat model. And then our call to action. Our call to action. When you show up, join the challenges. Don't just let the challenge go by, because they are there. Don't let just them be on the shelf. We do a challenge every month, and you want to make sure that you're getting through those. Now, our first challenge was to find out what's your why. Why do you want to do the things that you're doing? Why do you want to be healthy? Begin learning how to fast for at least 24 hours each week, once a week, 24 hours. That's your challenge. That was your challenge. The next one was to figure out, of the heat model, which one was yours? What are the things that drive you? And for me, I'll tell you, I have 3 of them. EAT, emotions, access, and taste. Those are the ones that get me all the time. In April, create a meal that was minimizing your was whole foods based, minimize processing foods, no added sugar, starchy and non-starchy vegetables, that had healthy fats, lean protein, that was tasty, and that had the appropriate portion size. See, there it is, portion size. In May, find someone to mentor in the New Year, New You model, right? There are over 1 billion people on the planet that are pre-diabetes, diabetic, or diabetic. And not even to mention the people who may not have diabetes, but they have coronary artery disease, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, fatty liver, they struggle with weight, they're obese. All of those things can benefit from the New Year, New You model. So find someone, be their mentor. Don't just tell them about it and disappear and don't see them and talk to them for 5 months. Come alongside, walk along with them as they learn and as they are moving in that direction. Remember, small steps right now set us up for large steps or large success in the future. And then in June, get your labs done. There are some things that you need to be looking at, some screening labs. Talk to your doctor. Look at that show if you've not done that yet. And then for this month, incorporate some activity into your regimen, into your schedule. What are you doing? I walk. I saw somebody say they bike. Somebody said they walk. There are people who go to the gym, right? I'm working on some toning things as well, right? So my main thing is walking, but we're trying to tone, the 6-pack, right? I'm working on this 1-pack right here. Okay? And then remember the pillars for reversing diabetes: decrease insulin, suppress the appetite, and then reduce sugar. That's our plan, right? So tonight we started by talking about decreasing the insulin, and you saw that the benefit of having all the things that insulin does, right? All those things that insulin does, we can improve those by decreasing the amount of insulin, and we gave you that list of how you go about doing that. And let me perhaps pop that back up here. Give me just a second, let me get back so that we can, there it is. So decreasing insulin, pillar number 1, and we decrease insulin by improving insulin sensitivity, decreasing the glucose load, reduce inflammation, improve sleep quality, manage our stress, and stay well hydrated. Right? So those are the things that we want to do. Hey y'all, as always. So Jennifer, I do see, let's see, we used to collect blah blah blah. Where do we sign up? Okay, let me do that really quickly. Thank you for asking that, Lightworks. And Jennifer, thank you for, let's see, where are we? Let me get that and I will drop it into the chat here in just a minute. I should have had that already, but hey. So if you are, and I saw that Steve said he does a 24-ish. So drop in the chat. What is your normal fasting schedule like? Like, you guys know I do a 72-hour. And by the way, I am at midnight tonight. I'll be 24 hours. By the way, so I do at least a 72-hour fast every week. What is your fasting regimen? What do you do? Do you do a 24 once a week? Do you do a 36 once a week? Are you doing a 23 one? Right. So what is your fasting regimen? And then while I do that, Steve is asking for ketones. Yeah. So Steve, actually, you're right. Let me do that while I pull this up. So let's go ahead and I'm going to pull over my keto meter, and you'll see on the screen the Keto Mojo. So let's go ahead and pop that up, and we'll see what. Oops. Where did it go? There we go. And it should pull that over here in just a minute. Let's go ahead and pop that. There we go. And we'll get that number. And here is, go ahead and pop this in the link. And so here comes the, this is the Zoom sign up. Just popped into the link and or into the chat. And so my blood sugar 87, ketones are low. Blood sugar 87, ketones are low. So remember, ketones less than 0.5 considered normal. 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis. And ketones that are above 1.5 are considered therapeutic ketosis. And so, Steve, what I love, by the way, is, and I don't know if you checked your ketones recently, but if you did, go ahead and pop that in. And Steve has been, if I remember correctly, Steve, you've been trying to do a ketogenic diet on a regular basis, right? So that's your kind of modus operandi, if you will. And so if you have checked your ketones recently, go ahead and pop that in. As you know, I do a 72-hour fast, and during 72-hour fast, my ketones, anywhere from 0.5. I think the last one we did, actually, why don't we look at that really quickly? My last ketone was 3.4. Okay. And then I try to extend that into, so I usually do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, extend that a little bit into Friday evening. And then at that point, it is usually whatever the ketones are, right? Because I'm not trying to maintain ketosis. I still try to do a relatively good, quote unquote, don't like using that word, a diet like we've been talking about. But I'm not in ketosis. But Steve said that his ketones are 2.7. Love it. Hey, look at that. 2.7. Love that. And he says, yeah, so he is trying to maintain in ketosis. So I love it. And then Jennifer, so the Lightwork says, my goal is 16, but since I have started, I've exceeded. Yeah, love it. Yep, there we go. And then Jennifer says, intermittent fasting most days, then 24 to 72 starting on Wednesdays. I vary as it fits the family. Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the great things about being flexible, Jennifer. So I love that you said that you've got to be flexible in what you do. Awesome. All right. Well, y'all, I mean, I'm always excited to be here. I do want to say, if you've not caught us yet, This Week in Review airs every Sunday morning at 6 o'clock. and we recap the shows that we do, some commentary that we do there. Make sure that you catch that if you've not done that yet. So we will see you tomorrow at our check-in. Not tomorrow. We'll see you on Wednesday at our check-in. We'll see you on Thursday at our community meetup, and then Friday check-in is again as well. So anyway, as I always say, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. Glad that you are here. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new you. We'll see you guys at our check-in later this week. Good night, everybody.